Hi, I'm Nat.
And I'm Guy, and today we're talking Rachel Zegler. She just keeps getting more backlash for the Snow White. I'm expecting a huge boycott. And also Kathleen Kennedy. It looks like she may be gone from Lucasfilms, which I think is a good thing.
Yes.
But first, 15 minutes from Nat in Spanish.
Así es. Todos los primeros 15 minutos de los en vivo son en español porque pues la mayor parte de nuestra audiencia es en español, pero nos gusta incluir a Guy también porque además de productor pues es parte de todo el canal, nada más que ahí va con el español, dennos chance. Y sí, como dijo Guy, la primera noticia es que Rachel Zegler, la protagonista de Blancanieves, que ahora están haciendo Blancanieves en persona, bueno, en live action, ¿cómo se dirá? Con personas de a de veras, con actores de a de veras, que ya es una estrategia que Disney ha tratado y pues no le ha ido muy bien en ninguno de sus intentos. Uno de los peores, yo diría, personalmente, es El Rey León, porque nada más no funciona ver leones que son medio animados, pero que hablan, pero que luego no se ven ni reales ni falsos y casi todo parecía hecho por inteligencia artificial, aunque no fue así, y entiendo que probablemente les tomó muchísimo esfuerzo hacerlo, pero bueno, siguen con su tendencia de pues no tener ideas originales y nada más pues hacer pues refrito tras refrito de películas que a mucha gente le gustaban y que tenían en alta estima y que ahora pues ha caído bastante. En especial estoy pensando, por ejemplo, con La Sirenita por sus grandes esfuerzos de diversificar, incluir y hacer todo más equitativo, que pues no les funciona porque son personajes muy arraigados dentro de la cultura y dentro de las mismas historias de personas que se identifican o se identificaban con esos personajes sin importar de qué color fueran o de dónde fueran. Puede ser alguien como que no tenga nada que ver con La Sirenita, la original, pero había personas todavía que era su película favorita y se identificaban y así la querían dejar, pero no pudieron y ahora pues se fueron con la más clásica de las clásicas, que ahora ya por fin va a salir, al parecer pronto, porque se suponía que iba a salir el año pasado y luego tuvieron muchísimos problemas. Esta película está retacada de problemas desde su inicio, pero veamos la noticia y luego sigo platicando sobre qué pasó con Blancanieves. Este protagonista de Blancanieves, que se llama Rachel Zegler, asegura que entiende las críticas de la película, pero se defiende ante las críticas. ¿Y cómo se defendió ante las críticas? Pues en una entrevista con Vogue México, curiosamente, Rachel Zegler abordó la controversia en torno a Blancanieves y su participación en la película, porque gran parte del enojo que tienen las personas es que esta mujer pues se la pasa diciendo tontería tras tontería tras tontería y nada más continúa hundiendo un proyecto que ya de por sí no era muy bien visto por el público en general. Y dijo que reconoce las opiniones encontradas sobre la nueva versión que reflejan el impacto cultural del clásico de 1937, que fue la primera película de Disney y ganó pues un Oscar grande y 7 Oscars chiquitos por los enanitos. ¿Puedo decir todavía eso? Ya ni siquiera sé qué se puede decir o no. Pero dijo, interpreto los sentimientos de la gente sobre esta película como pasión por ella. Y qué honor poder ser parte de algo por lo que la gente siente tanta pasión. No siempre vamos a tener los mismos sentimientos que todos los que nos rodean y todo lo que podemos hacer es dar lo mejor de nosotros. Y suena bastante parecido a... Thank you. Suena bastante parecido a pues lo mismo que dijo otra actriz que dice que latina falsa, Selena Gómez, de hice lo mejor que pude con el tiempo que se me dio, aunque no pude aprender español en sus 32 años de vida. Entonces, ¿qué pasó con esta señora y por qué todos están pues ya hartos de ella? Lo que empezó pasando es que cuando empezaron a dar entrevistas, tanto Gal Gadot, que es la reina de la película, la reina malvada de la película, que luego trata de desvivir a Blancanieves, y Rachel Zegler, que es la actriz principal como Blancanieves, obviamente elegida porque pues se ve diferente y tenemos que tener que todo el mundo se siente identificado, no solo por la historia en sí, pero por cómo se ve la persona. Entonces necesitaban que Blancanieves pues no fuera tan blanca. Entonces se fueron con Rachel Zegler, alguien que dice ser latina, pero más bien solo tiene ascendencia latina por un lado, es mitad colombiana. Y cuando le empezaron a preguntar sobre la película y sobre cómo había interpretado el papel y cuáles eran sus metas con el papel de Blancanieves, ella decidió decir que pues iba a darle un giro. Toda la película le daba un giro a la historia de Blancanieves y que pues la historia al final no tiene que ser sobre un hombre rescatando a una mujer y el príncipe azul, sino que la historia misma de crecimiento personal de Blancanieves. O sea, una Blancanieves feminista, millennial, que nadie quiere ver y a nadie le interesó. Y cuando empezaron a salir más y más críticas, pues en vez de decir, bueno, está bien, pensemos mejor, si esa fue la mejor forma de tratar de hacer un homenaje a este primer clásico de Disney, dijo no, todos deberían de estar de acuerdo con lo que yo pienso y con cómo yo voy a interpretar a Blancanieves, porque es la única forma hoy en día en esta era moderna de interpretar a una mujer que siempre tiene que ser fuerte y no puede estar ni siquiera a la par de un príncipe azul, sino que tiene que estar por encima de cualquier hombre. Entonces, obviamente, los fans, y ya ahora sí todos, dijeron, pues no es la película que queremos ver, no nos interesa mucho ver pues la historia feminista de Blancanieves, que si la van a hacer, pues rindan homenaje a la historia y no la borren por completo, porque en el cuento de hadas de Blancanieves, pues se trata de eso, de que el amor te puede revivir, y que te puedes enamorar de alguien sin importar de dónde viene o de qué tipo de clase social tenga. Y hay muchos más trasfondos. Digo mucho esa palabra. Hay muchos más trasfondos detrás del pues, cuento de hadas que normalmente tratan de enseñar algún tipo de moraleja o historia para la vida en general y para la cultura. Y ahora pues eso lo quieren borrar todo y tiene que ser Blancanieves feminista. Entonces ahí surgió la controversia inicial y después pues como es muy, muy, muy woke esta actriz y muy activista social y etcétera, cada vez que abría la boca decía más y más tonterías que hacía que la gente dijera, bueno, pues no estamos muy de acuerdo contigo, el público en general, en especial padres de familia, no estaban como felices con las declaraciones que estaba haciendo. Y después decidió, cuando hubo las protestas por parte de los escritores en Hollywood en 2023-2024, también decidió salir a decir que ella como actriz, si se va a sentar 12 horas usando el traje clásico de Blancanieves y esperando a que se pueda hacer la siguiente toma, porque normalmente toma mucho hacer todo el setup o todo, o sea, poner todas las cámaras donde deberían de estar. Entonces, normalmente cuando estás en un set son horas donde estás nada más casi picándote los ojos o podrías estar practicando tus líneas o viendo el guión, etcétera, etcétera. Pero ella dijo, si voy a estar ahí 12 horas, quiero que me paguen por las 12 horas y cualquier minuto extra que esté ahí. Entonces, según ella, muy justicia social, etcétera, pero no se dio cuenta de lo ridícula que sonaba una niña, básicamente muy joven, que fue elegida por pues diversidad, básicamente estaba ahí por diversidad, equidad e inclusión, diciendo que como actriz es muy difícil tener que hacer este trabajo y tener que andar esperando a que todos los demás estén listos. Sonó muy fuera de lugar su comentario y luego le siguió y con pues todo el problema entre... Es que no sé si puedo decir las palabras porque a YouTube no le gustan, pero Israel, Palestina, etcétera, pues tomó un lado muy decisivo y luego su coprotagonista, Gal Gadot, pues es israelí. Entonces ahí también hubieron mil y más. Se siguió metiendo en controversias y Disney ya estaba así como, ya no sabemos qué hacer. Y luego salieron fotos sobre la película con, pues se supone que son enanitos con los que vive Blancanieves, pero pues como no es muy políticamente correcto hoy en día, según el actor más famoso, el actor con enanismo más famoso que hay, que es, what was the name of the dwarf character, the dwarf actor?
Oh, it's the guy from the Dragon Show. Game of Thrones.
The Dragon Show.
I don't know.
Bueno, ay, se me fue el nombre, pero bueno, un actor, el más famoso que tiene enanismo, salió a decir que cómo puede...
Was it Peter Dinklage?
Sí, thank you. Peter Dinklage salió a decir que es un insulto para toda la comunidad, hablando él por toda la comunidad con enanismo, bueno, salió a decir que era un insulto, que hubieran usado pues enanos en la película y que deberían de cambiar y hacerlo ahora como para 2024, ahora 2025. Entonces Disney dijo, ok, está bien, el güey más famoso nos está diciendo que estamos mal, vamos a cambiar todo. Entonces se les ocurrió hacer un muégano, aglomeramiento de puros actores con muchas diferencias, ya sea raciales, todos parecían sacados de las calles de Vancouver. Alguien que ha pasado por ahí sabrá a lo que me refiero, pero pues todos parecían que pues, no tenían casa, no tenían nada que ver con la historia. Y ahora eran seres mágicos en vez de los 7 enanitos, eran los 7 seres mágicos. Y otra vez el público dijo, ¿por qué siguen cambiando todo en base a querer ser políticamente correctos? Porque después salió, ahora sí, toda la comunidad de actores con enanismo que normalmente no tienen muchos papeles que interpretar, pues pueden salir en películas de Navidad y en películas donde se están riendo de ellos, lamentablemente, y en Blancanieves, básicamente son los papeles que Hollywood les ha dado. Entonces salieron a decir, ¿por qué le están haciendo caso a este güey cuando toda la comunidad, y esta sería una gran oportunidad para toda la comunidad, por lo menos 7 de nosotros, para interpretar pues uno de los papeles más icónicos que existen, bueno, uno de los papeles más icónicos que existen para personas con pues, nuestra condición? Y pues Disney ahora sí dijo, bueno, ¿y ahora qué hacemos? Porque ya tenemos a Peter Dinklage enojado por acá, a toda la otra comunidad enojada por acá, y decidieron, pues, en vez de, ahora sí, tomar a los actores que estaban pidiéndoles trabajo, básicamente, pues animarlos, porque si ya vamos a animar a la versión real del Rey León, ¿por qué no animar en vez de contratar actores que lo están pidiendo? Pues entonces ahora todos los que volvieron a ser enanitos, porque los seres mágicos nada más no funcionó como concepto, pues ahora los enanitos están animados, aparte de todo. Ni siquiera decidieron contratar a todos los actores que eran capaces y están qualified. A veces se me van palabras, perdón. Pero que tienen todo el potencial de volverse actores donde es un papel que ellos querían hacer. Ya me explayé mucho con la película, creo que ya se me fueron mis minutos, déjame ver en cuánto voy. Ya voy en 15 minutos, me pasé 15 minutos hablando sobre Blancanieves, perdón. Pero también quería nada más rápido decir que en este artículo de Tomatazos también Zegler continúa con su afán de decir que es latina y necesita representación latina. Hice todo un video sobre esto donde se llama Los falsos latinos, está en el canal. Pero qué importante es la herencia dentro de su carrera de ser latina y que hay que reflejar a más latinos en pantalla, pero pues latinos a lo que Hollywood cree y como Hollywood piensa que se ven. Y esta niña ni siquiera habla español, entonces ahí está su representación latina. Pero ahora sí creo que sí, ya se me fueron los 15 minutos, pero tenía más cosas sobre qué hablar. Vamos a hablar sobre también, rápido, let me say something real quick. Ya que he hablado mucho sobre esta persona en el canal, Carlos Sofía Gascón, protagonista Emilia Pérez, sí asistirá a los Oscar en medio de la polémica de redes sociales. Ya vieron lo que pasó, que salieron, pues ahora sí le salió todo por medio de X o Twitter, cosas que había puesto en un pasado, donde ahora sí no solo los que estaban en contra de tener, por ejemplo, una actriz trans como parte de las nominadas a Mejor Actriz, pues ahora también todo el lado woke y todo el lado de justicia social se enojó porque sus opiniones, digamos que no son muy amenas para todos los woke y va completamente en contra de todo lo que ellos profesan allá en Hollywood. Entonces había dicho que había cortado relación con Netflix, que ya no iba a seguir asistiendo a todas las premiaciones, sigue nominado, pero pues que ya no iba a asistir y que Netflix ya no le iba a pagar por ir a ningún lado porque se querían distanciar de todos los comentarios feos que dijo. Pero ahora parece que sí, ya no fue a los SAG Awards, a los Screen Actor Guild Awards, ya no fue tampoco a otro que fue hace poco. Espérenme. No fue a los SAG y no fue a los otros premios. Me parece que los Screenwriters, Screen Actors Guild y what's the other? Y Critics' Choice Award. No fue a los premios de los críticos ni al de los actores, donde estuvo también nominado pero ahora parece que sí, va a aparecerse en los Oscars, no se sabe si va a pasar por la alfombra roja, si le van a dejar ese honor o no, o si se vaya a sentar junto con todos los demás del elenco y de la película, y el director, que también salió a decir que los comentarios de Carlos Gascón se distanciaba de ellos, pero al mismo tiempo él pues nunca se ha distanciado de sus comentarios de que el español es para gente pobre. Entonces, sigue en controversia esta película y también parece que Netflix sí le va a pagar el chistecito, entonces, pues ya la veremos por allá. Tenía planeado sacar un video, ahorita estoy tratando de editar un video para sacarlo más al rato, entonces nos vamos a ahora sí salir a las 10:15 para hacer 1 hora de en vivo. Si no sale hoy, saldrá mañana. Siempre ando como mediodía de retraso, porque les recuerdo que todo lo grabamos y editamos nada más Guy y yo, no tenemos editores ni nadie más que nos ayude. Entonces a veces se tardan las cosas, pero el siguiente video va a ser sobre fertilización in vitro y pues los secretos que se ocultan detrás de esto que venden como la solución a los problemas de fertilidad. Y el siguiente video, y digo en ese video, iba a ser uno sobre como las partes aún más oscuras sobre toda la reproducción asistida y la industria que existe alrededor, pero como van a ser los Óscares y como ya había prometido, voy a sacar un video sobre la historia de cómo los Óscares pasaron a ser irrelevantes y además a ser hiper super woke. Entonces, esperen ese, si todo funciona para el jueves, si no, pues para el viernes. Ya me conocen que siempre voy como con un día de retraso. Se supone que los videos salen martes y jueves, pero pues ya ven. Pero bueno, buenas noches. Ahora sí ya me voy. Déjenme ver si hay comentarios. Nat, eres muy bonita, muchas gracias. Parte de Manuel Francisco. Alain, el profesor Pacheco, dice: la prueba más evidente que Rachel Zegler no vio a Blancanieves. Exactamente, porque no solo se trata de que la rescaten, tiene mucho más trasfondo la historia de Blancanieves. Y luego Walker dice: ¿cuál es tu opinión de las posturas de la derecha en Latinoamérica? ¿Crees que se han radicalizado mucho? Más bien creo que la derecha en Latinoamérica no tiene guía, no tiene pues bien para dónde ver ni un como hilo que una a todas las diferentes posturas y a todas las diferentes opiniones que hay, pero también es válido porque pues entre más diferencia de opiniones hayan, pues más se puede encontrar hacia dónde ir, o como un punto en común, common ground, es lo que estoy tratando de decir, pero mi cerebro ahorita nada más está con el timeline del video que tengo que editar. Entonces, buenas noches, ya nos vamos con Guy. Si se quedaron a lo de español, muchas gracias. Si se quedan a lo de inglés, vamos a hablar de estas historias y pues otras de geopolítica. Entonces, muchísimas gracias y nos vemos mañana y espero que nos veamos en el video que se supone que tengo que sacar. Buenas noches. That was it. Sorry, I went really long.
Oh, that's okay.
I didn't know I had that much to say about Rachel Zegler.
Well, I figured you had something to say about the Academy Awards as well.
And I said I am releasing a video about the Oscars in Spanish.
Well, and usually I prep all the subjects, and I usually prep a lot of geopolitics,
Yes.
which I had for today as well.
And
but
I never get to talk.
for the second half, the first half or the beginning, I prepped pop culture stuff, and you always like pop culture, so... Okay.
Well, I'm more the cultural, social person.
So what did you say about Rachel Zegler and Snow White?
Well, what did I say? Well, I was trying to explain the whole controversy first, because I think some people don't know about it. They just know that we shouldn't like her, but they don't know why.
Yeah.
And then, so I explained that, like, she basically came out to say that Snow White is a feminist icon, and it should be about the man not rescuing her and her becoming this strong woman, when the story and the moral behind the story and the issues that the story presents are much deeper than just, oh, Prince Charming, oh.
Yeah, and she started to double and triple down, and then her Trump derangement syndrome kind of came out, so the backlash grew and grew and grew with her. But on her initial comments, it was her and Gal Gadot standing there, and Gal Gadot was agreeing with her initially, but then just kind of went quiet about it and then apologized about it, and nothing else was said about Gal Gadot. But Rachel Zegler just kept doubling and tripling down. And I'm good with the cancellation, but I think Disney has a lot of responsibility to take in this, because Rachel Zegler didn't write the script, Disney did. And this wasn't originally 7 dwarfs. It was...
It was 7 magical creatures. And I spoke about that and how the dwarfism community, Peter Dinklage came out to say, no, you cannot have dwarves, even though I'm the most famous dwarf actor in the world. He didn't want to share. Because I was saying, like, dwarves only have so many roles right now, at least in Hollywood, that they can interpret. He has carved a career out for himself, but kind of left everyone else behind. And right now, the only things that people with dwarfism can act in is basically Christmas movies or Snow White. And he was taken away because they didn't use dwarves because of the comments from Peter Dinklage saying that, oh, it's such a travesty, you cannot use dwarves and present us in this manner. And then the whole community, the whole dwarf actor community came out to say, no, you're wrong. We want these parts. These are one of the few places where we could actually, become known in a Disney movie and like be represented in a more positive light, honestly, than they usually are. Yeah. And they all got mad. And then Disney was like, okay, we won't do the 7 magical creatures that look like homeless people taken out of Vancouver.
Well, first of all,
but then they animated them instead of hiring the actors that were saying, hey, please hire us. They just animated the damn dwarves.
Yeah, well, it was never 7 dwarves, but I think there was going to be a few dwarves in it. And
there was one.
Dinklage, complained. I actually knew one of the actors that was in it. He used to come into the bar I was bouncer at, and it was actually the tallest magical creature of the bunch.
Oh, so they are taking him out from Vancouver.
I guess he still got paid for it, but now he's taken out of the movie. Yeah. So I'm going to be interested to see if they still get a film credit on that.
Maybe. They'll get some royalties.
Yeah.
But, I mean, they should have just not listened to Dinklage at all and just gone with...
Well, the movie keeps costing more and more and more money because
failing more and more and more.
They had to animate all the dwarves in because there was a huge backlash that was magical creatures. Then there was such a huge backlash on Rachel Zegler that they recast her, the younger version of her in the movie now, and they've extremely limited her screen time.
I didn't say that in Spanish, but yeah.
And also, it was the biggest. I think, or at least at the point it happened, and I think it still is today. It was the biggest downvoted trailer of all time.
And
so I'm expecting a boycott.
And this story and the failings of Snow White has been happening for a very long time now, because I made a video about this 2 years ago.
They just keep delaying it. They're hoping people will forget, but it just keeps building more steam.
They're also like bogged down with reshoots as well, which that takes a very long time. And then the whole screenwriters strike happened, and then they had to pause it as well. And then she came out to say that if I'm going to sit in a Snow White dress for 12 hours waiting for them to set up, I should get paid for every minute of those 12 hours. She just comes out and seems more and more disconnected from the world. And that's why people are also mad at her, because she comes out with these stupid statements and then nobody relates to it.
And Disney doesn't help her out in any way, shape, or form, because they privately behind the scenes have a huge woke culture in the thing. So it's hard for them to say she needs to stop doing that because they actually agree with her.
But they could have also paid for some PR training or something, like at least get her a PR person.
They can't tell her to stop because then there'll be a backlash from the leftist community at the time.
Yes, because you're silencing a fake Latino.
Okay.
But what actually happened was that she, like Rachel Zegler, responded to the negative social media casting backlash by saying that it's an honor to, what an honor to be to have all these, like she said, I interpret people's feelings about this film as their passion for her. And what an honor to be a part of something for which people feel so much passion. We're not always going to have the same sentiments as those around us. And all that we can do is give the best of ourselves. And I did say that she sounded very similar to another Latina that recently came out to try to excuse herself and her acting, which was Selena Gomez, by saying, I did what I could with the time I had.
Yeah, both those
It's
actresses,
the same narrative.
both those actresses really don't understand how to just shut up because George Clooney was doing the same thing. But George Clooney has actually a lot of power within the Democratic Party, and he was one of the primary figures that got Joe Biden replaced with Kamala Harris. He's a Democrat to the day he dies, but he had plenty of Trump derangement syndrome. But when there was a huge backlash and he kept making statements, recently now he's all of a sudden become a moderate, saying, oh, we're not that far apart, and when we lose elections.
And he's not even trying to promote anything. I mean, these two women are
he was losing roles
midst.
in Hollywood.
Yeah, but
him and Julia Roberts.
because they were speaking too much.
Yeah.
You can only be so loud until like the negative press starts hindering any opportunity you have.
Oh, this is the first time you're really going to get negative press for being a liberal.
Now, yeah.
This is the first time in American culture, I think, in the last 40 years.
I was going to say there was a while there with the Red Scare, but yeah.
That's before my time.
This.
Okay, the next story was Lucasfilm's boss Kathleen Kennedy expected to retire this year, and it was actually expected to happen in 2024, and it didn't happen. The rumor was
it's been expected to happen for a long time now.
The rumor was she was trying to go out on a high note, and everything she just keeps touching keeps failing, and there was no opportunity for her to go out on a high note. Yeah. I think she was also prepping her protege, which everything her protege puts her hands on ends up failing as well too.
Yeah, so from that Park Place, if you don't know who they are, go follow if you're interested in like Disney and just media.
Or WDW
That's
Pro
what I
is
was
good
going
as
to
well.
say. Like WDW Pro is from that Park Place, and they bring out articles. So go follow them on YouTube. It's WDW Pro. But they say Kathleen Kennedy reportedly leaving Lucasfilm sometime this year, who knows when, according to Hollywood Trades. After more than a decade at the helm of Lucasfilm, Kathleen Kennedy is reportedly preparing to retire, leaving Lucasfilm by the end of 2025, according to a recent report by Puck, with The Hollywood Reporter soon following suit. While rumors of her departure have circulated for years, this time it appears to be more than just fan speculation and hope. Because all the fans were hoping she would leave.
She's the one that destroyed Lucasfilms.
Yes.
She's a huge power player, not only within Lucasfilm, but within Disney. She's appointing a lot of the people and recommending a lot of the people that are getting these jobs and these DEI hires, and especially the writers' rooms have gone extremely downhill. Kathleen Kennedy is like, who's the person that does the orchestra?
The conductor?
She's like the conductor of this woke craziness that's happening within Lucasfilms and Disney. So she's really one of the gatekeepers, and it's going to be good to see her go if she actually does go. And it looks like a lot of the people she was trying to bring up, they're going to be either, if not gone with her, the new people that come in, I don't expect them to keep greenlighting these crazy feminist projects.
Yeah. And that's the main thing. Like, if it's not because she's a woman or because she might be a DEI hire, but it's the fact that she was taking this beloved IP, intellectual property, which is Star Wars, and essentially just destroying all of it with just feminism and just bringing in leading characters that make no sense, and then trying to follow the story with things that just don't make sense for actual fans and for the actual people that know a lot more than she does about the whole Star Wars universe. They would come out and say, nothing that you're putting on screen makes sense, even with, like, it doesn't make sense with the chronology, it doesn't make sense with the canon of the whole Star Wars enterprise.
I was actually fine with it once or twice because you can make mistakes, but this was highly politically motivated, and she just kept tripling and flipping and 5, 10, 6, as many times as she could. She just kept writing the same type of scripts, doing the same kind of mistakes.
Even though they were failing.
Nobody stopped her because everybody at Disney and at Lucasfilms is scared of her because she's best friends with Kamala Harris.
And not just Kamala Harris, but she holds a lot of power, and she comes from a lineage of her husband and a lot of other powerful people around her that helped her get the title role at Lucasfilm.
Yeah,
To be at the helm of Lucasfilm.
She's probably failed more than anybody I know, but she was so well connected that she never got canceled.
Exactly.
Okay, let's go into the next story. It's Kira Sofa Garcia. How do you say her name?
Try to say it again, please.
No, I'm not saying it again. Why don't you say her name and why do you do the story?
So Carla Sofia Gascon to attend Oscars. Netflix agrees to pay expenses after tweet controversy. So I explain it as well?
Go ahead.
Okay, because I've been talking about this for a while now. I've made a few videos on this person.
If you haven't seen the videos, go watch them.
I will not use
live.
pronouns, but with the Emilia Perez movie, the first trans actress came out with a bunch of statements at first. Everybody was very for him being nominated for the Best Actress at the Oscars and at a lot of other awards. And then some people did some digging after she started kind of doing weird things, like going against one of her opponents or one of the other people in the race for Best Actress. And then a lot of tweets that this person had put out, not years ago, but 3 to 4 years ago, so kind of recently, that went against essentially everything that the woke or Hollywood try to espouse, and the social justice-y and all of these movements, basically coming out as, to them, like far-right extremism. And it was funny because it's a trans actress that's coming out and saying all this, that they had already nominated for all these things. So then Netflix scrambled, because Netflix bought Emilia Perez's rights for distribution, and they said, oh, we're going to distance ourselves and not pay for this person to appear at any more award ceremonies, because usually the studio pays for their people that are nominated to go to all these award shows. And then this person, Carlos Sofia Gascon, was like, okay, I'll shut up, did a whole hour of an interview crying, saying, I'm sorry, I didn't mean it, but I did.
Never apologize, that's the thing.
Well, that's the thing, this person didn't. It was between saying, I didn't mean it, and I'm sorry if you got offended. So it didn't help. The apology didn't help because everybody was still mad at this person. But now apparently this person will attend the Oscars and will be financed by Netflix, because I'm guessing either groveling or a lot of internal politics, or they just don't want to keep making the story get bigger once the whole cast is there and the one main actress is missing.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting what happens, because is she going to win the award, or is he going to win the award? Is he not? And I think their whole plan was to have this person win the award, and this to be the really tip of the spear cultural moment to try to come back from this conservative shift that's happening
and to go against
American Hollywood,
especially to stick it to Orange Man bad to Trump. But yeah, it's going to be even more interesting, and I was saying in Spanish, because the director already came out to say that Spanish is the language of poor people, and then he also denounced this person. But now, are they going to sit together? Are they going to do press together? Selena Gomez also tried to distance herself, and she also had a bunch of other controversies coming out by saying she's Latina, defending her people. She can't even talk to her people because she doesn't speak Spanish. And then Zoe Saldana, who is still nominated, is just kind of sitting in the corner waiting for this to be over because she needs that award.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting what happens with Hollywood over the next couple of years, especially, this is a little bit of a different story, but I was seeing what happened to Captain America, and the Captain American box office is really diving, but that wasn't the big story. The big story was China is really turning on Disney right now, and turning not only on Disney, but investment in a lot of Hollywood. So are you going to see Americans actually take back American movies? It'll be interesting. You had really seen this push, a lot of foreign investment and a lot of political ideology forced into movies. Mm-hmm. So I'm hoping to see, a change over the next few years. Yeah. But they still have a backlog of movies that they had already shot.
Yeah, and we've mentioned that quite a few times, that it takes 2 to 3 years for script idea to move through production. So everything you're going to be seeing in the next year and a half to 2 years is from the woke era, basically. Anything they don't pull
Yeah.
like immediately because they think they know the backlash is there.
Well, and a lot of independent films over the last few years were giving grant money from different governments from around the world to have very, very leftist political leanings. And so what happens, these movies get into film festivals. Companies like Netflix or Amazon or the other streaming services go into these film festivals and actually buy all the movies as a lot that made the film festival cut. Mm-hmm. So I'm expecting to see a lot of independent films to have a lot of woke agenda over the next maybe year or two.
Yeah, and those are sometimes the award winners.
But a lot of times they shelf them, so we'll see if they actually do. We had one more cultural story, and that was the Fast and the Furious Hollywood Drift roller coaster, ready for 2026 at Universal Studios Hollywood. And I kind of added
Why
this.
Why is this story important? Because I don't know.
Well, I added this in so we could maybe talk about the context of Universal Studios really emerging as the new premier theme park over Disney.
Yeah, Epic Universe, because they're coming out. Somehow, when I'm editing or I don't want to think about politics, I watch a lot of news and stories about parks, like
theme parks.
Theme parks, Universal,
There's actually
Disney.
a whole series of channels that do just theme park news.
And like it helps me disconnect my brain. But so there's Epic Universe is opening in May, which is basically the newest, most fancy, best park since anything Disney has ever done.
Yeah, well,
and they're coming up with a lot of different ideas that Disney is kind of falling behind on.
Yeah, well, they have the Mario themed Nintendo World and a bunch of other properties they have. Fast and the Furious is one of their weaker properties, I would say. Yeah. But it's interesting to me because this is a major roller coaster, and they're starting to invest not just in the Florida park, but the California park. And I used to live by the park in Universal Studios Hollywood, and it kind of sucked.
Yeah.
So when you would go there, it was just kind of thrown together. It was mainly you were mainly going there to look at where they actually shot a lot of different movies.
Yeah, they had
it was more of a functional park than more of a functional park than an actual theme park. They was just kind of converted. But one of the worst things they had was the Fast and the Furious. They just kind of had these cars sitting in a lot. And as the movie got old, the cars got old and they were dirty. But now they're actually building a roller coaster, stuff like that. So I'm glad to see they're actually investing in the Hollywood park and not just the Florida one.
And also at the Florida park, they did have ride, if you can call it that, but it was mostly screen-based, which a lot of fans don't like. So the fact that they're deciding to improve it by still keeping the same IP, but actually making it an outside roller coaster that does more things that just show you things on screen, because it used to be called, I don't remember what it was called, but Fast and the Furious Supercharged. Like a lot of people didn't love it because they would get dizzy. It was all like screens. And it's very different to what Disney continues to do, which is trying to just inject their intellectual property even into parks where it doesn't really make sense, like Animal Kingdom, like Epcot, which is supposed to be about technology and innovation. And now there's very few rides that have nothing to do with IP, when the whole point of the Disney parks was edutainment. So you'd be educated, but also entertained, and it didn't have to have an IP. And I think Universal is trying to kind of keep the legacy of their existing IP without trying to bring in all the new things. Because also with Dark Universe, I know way too much about these subjects. Also with Dark Universe, which is one of the parts of Epic Universe, what they're doing is bringing in like very old, like Hollywood classic monster characters and like evil characters that they have, and not relying on just their new IP, which is the mistake that Disney's making, and not capitalizing on the whole nostalgia factor that's infected a lot of millennials and other people that pay money to go.
Disney has all the really good IP, and Universal Studios really needs to buy up more children's IP, because that's what's going to drive a lot of attendance to theme parks. Their theme parks are more adult oriented, but I think they need to buy up more children's IP. The problem is Disney keeps buying Pixar, and then they keep buying all these animation studios. So
they bought Pixar
children's IPs are really coveted, because some of the biggest box office movies are always children's movies, and that's because when a parent brings a child to a movie, you usually sell tickets to two parents and a child, or two children, depending how large the family is.
Yeah, and you also get a lot of marketability with sales of toys and all the other stuff that's related to the IP. But I am going to say that differ from what you just said. Something that Universal is doing that is intelligent is that they know that a lot of the people attending the parks are millennials and older people. So they are catering also to that demographic, while at Disney, they have all the creepy, weird Disney adults that still go, but they're mostly trying to capitalize with the children. But their children and their parents usually can't pay to be there. So
yeah, and I thought it was a good move to really bring Nintendo into the theme park with Universal. So it was an interesting move. Okay, let's go into the next story here, though. But we have Trump says Canada and Mexico tariffs are still going forward with more important taxes to come.
Okay, so we're switching gears.
So we're going into geopolitics now, which is our typical. We try to soften it up a little bit today. And
so Trump says Canada and Mexico tariffs are going forward with more import taxes to come. He said that they're starting next month, ending the month-long suspension on the planned import taxes that would potentially hurt economic. This is from the AP, so there's a lot of bias. We're on time with the tariffs, and it seems like they're moving along very rapidly, he said while he met with French President Macron.
Well, the next story is actually about the AP and Trump going against them. So now you can understand why they have that bias, or you will in a minute once we get to that story. But Canada is going to come in every 30 days, and he's going to renegotiate something small that Canada and Mexico will give him every 30 days, because he just keeps extending it 30 days at a time. It's a reprieve. It's a reprieve. It's a way to kind of, he's becoming the president of Mexico and Canada. And I said it before, and I know some people don't like when I say it, but if you're coming in every 30 days telling these countries what to do, you're basically the acting president.
Yeah, well, it's his way to try to corral them and do what he wants them to do. And thus far, I mean, they've both bent the knee. They've tried not to, but they ended up realizing that the best for everybody, at least in January and February, was to kind of go along with him.
They kind of have to, because Mexico and Canada each represent 2.5% of the American GDP. So if the countries were to come together, it would be 5% of total GDP of the United States, where the United States is like 60 to 80% of Canada and Mexico's economy. Mm-hmm. It would be absolutely devastating if they went into a tariff war with the United States. We know who the winner would be. Let's go into the next.
What happened with the AP?
Judge refuses to order the AP back into the White House press pool. So Trump recently banned the AP. That's the Associated Press. They're actually not just the Associated Press. They provide all the photography for the White House to independent journalists and things like this. So they actually play a pretty big role, but they refused to call the Gulf of America the Gulf of Mexico, and Trump didn't like that, so he banned them from the press briefing room, as well as the press pool. So they still are kind of around and are allowed some access, but it's been severely limited. They try to take Trump to court saying he's not allowed to do that, but it seems to me that CNN, MSNBC, these people don't have any right to just naturally be there. Yeah. Trump's really mixing up who's in the press pool now. He's putting a lot of independent content creators and alternative media, mixing them with the traditional press. So
they don't like that.
But the traditional press typically, even to this day, gets more access than independent media, and that's because of the cost associated with covering the White House. If Trump goes on a private plane, they have to pay for the ticket. If he cancels the trip, they still have to. They don't get a refund for that ticket. A bunch of other things as well.
Yeah, and I mean, you have to essentially just dedicate a whole reporter and all the expenses that goes along with that to be at least in Washington D.C., if not like to be available anytime there's a press briefing to report on it. So it is an extent, like it's a whole person that you have to be paying for. And if you're an independent media source, that's pretty hard to finance.
Yeah, they're bringing up a lot of these cases against Trump, whether it's like media access or going against Doge, things like this, in very favorable districts to liberals. So the fact that this didn't come back on the AP side, it's definitely an indicator they don't want to just put willy-nilly judgments against Trump, because he'll bring it to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court will set the precedent that Trump can rule through executive order, and they don't really want to make it an easy case. So I think they're trying to pick and choose which cases are going to go forward against Trump. We'll see what happens.
Yes, and I mean, there will be an update to this story because U.S. District Judge Trevor McFadden, a Trump appointee, declined to grant the news outlet's emergency motion, but set another hearing for the case for the 20th of March. And the AP, which argues the ban is retaliatory and infringes on First Amendment rights to freedom of speech and the press.
Okay, we'll go into the next story. It's going to be the Apple story. Apple has removed advanced data protection tool that was end-to-end encryption within the UK because the government is requiring Apple to provide a backdoor into Apple devices
to access encrypted files from users worldwide.
And they're doing it under a threat of huge sanctions or fines. So typically when the U.S. government wants to access, say they suspect somebody has criminal activity on their phone, they want to be able to go to Apple and access that phone. Apple's not able to access a lot of that data if end-to-end encryption is turned on. So the UK government is saying, by law, they had passed a law saying all cellular providers have to have a backdoor into their system, which this it's going to be contrary to what Apple wants to provide, which is a secure system for their customers. Mm-hmm. And now they're having to side with the government. So I'm sure Apple doesn't like this at all.
Yeah, and it was one of their selling points. But there's also another story with Apple from today that I don't think we have, but I just remembered it. Apparently the shareholders from Apple are declining to do away with their whole diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. They're voting on it, they're discussing it, and they're basically all coming to the conclusion that they don't want to do it. So there might be one of the few companies that try to keep their whole DEI initiatives in place.
Yeah, and I'm sorry to kind of see that because I think Apple was the way away from Microsoft. But now if you have Apple staying strong with their DEI policies and Microsoft kind of moving away from it, I don't know. I don't really trust Bill Gates at all, and I don't like him. So I would much rather have had the U.S. government dealing with Apple than Microsoft. But I'm going to be very interested to see how government contracts are given out in the new administration, especially when it comes to tech CEOs.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about people like Mark Zuckerberg or even Elon Musk. There's two major companies, and that's Apple and Microsoft, that really compete for like big CIA and FBI data contracts, things like this.
And Intel and IBM and all the big, all the like chip ones as well.
No, they provide chips and things like that. But for the actual data, it's primarily those two companies along with Amazon.
Yeah, I was going to say AWS.
Okay, so let's go into the next story here. We have rumors now emerged that several generals were caught shredding documents, and FBI raided the homes of several CIA officials. In the Blow report.
So he's reading a tweet from Alex Jones, but so yes, rumors are emerging that several generals were caught shredding documents, and the FBI raided the homes of several CIA officers. This is coming from Alex Jones, who's, by the way, looking way better than he has ever looked. He looks way younger as well, but it's the only source I could really find for this, so I'm guessing he's first reporting on it, but
I will
that's
say
about
this
as
is
much as I know.
Well, I knew a little bit more about this. Kash Patel has been raiding CIA and FBI safe houses where documents were being housed. He did that on day one. They kind of knew where some of the bodies were buried, so they did almost instantaneous raids as he came in. He's also going
metaphorically knew where the bodies.
Yeah, and then you can continue on.
No, you go.
I lost my train of thought there.
Oh, sorry. I was just...
That's okay.
You too.
You go ahead.
Well, I don't know anything about this story, so...
Okay, we'll go on to the next story then.
Sure.
Okay, despite Trump's executive orders banning CDC and WHO communications, CDC officers attended a WHO consolidate... Yeah.
U.S. joins WHO-led flu vaccine meeting despite planned withdrawal from agency. Yes.
Okay, without approval.
Yes,
so
without approval. This one is basically a biased source as well. But apparently the CDC and the FDA are participating virtually in a gathering seen as critical to public health, but is basically all about jabs and the fact that they had declared, that said that they weren't going to go and they didn't have approval to go or to continue talks about jabs with the WHO means that the U.S. that they're essentially going behind the administration's back.
And this is happening with a lot of departments right now. And you have to remember, on the first Trump administration, generals were given direct orders to pull troops back from Syria into the U.S., and they directly disobeyed. A lot of generals in the first administration were not following orders as they were told to do. Mm-hmm. So the fact that you're seeing now full branches of government not really listen to Trump, there needs to be mass firings here. But the big reason this is an important story is the CDC is really responsible for the United States population. The WHO is a world organization which was really trying to take away sovereignty from individual countries by having them sign over their sovereignty in case of another pandemic or emergency. Mm-hmm. So you really want the CDC to act completely independent than the WHO. And the fact that they're trying to work together still to this day, yeah, I don't like it at all.
Well, especially after they were essentially denied permission from continuing talks about things that the U.S. no longer wants to be involved in, but they're still getting involved, even though they were told not to.
Yeah, and I mean, Robert F. Kennedy is just coming into the HHS, mm-hmm. So I think he's going to be responsible for a lot of people that are working at the CDC and things like this, and a lot of the funding that comes out of the United States. I think he's responsible for, I think it was 1/4 or 1/8 of the total U.S. economy goes through HHS. Mm-hmm. A lot of people don't know that. No. So he hasn't really had time to clear out the CDC yet. So I think that's why things like this are still able to go on. Mm-hmm. Okay, but going forward, the Senate Financial Service had a meeting today about confronting China. So you didn't have an article on this.
No,
but,
I didn't.
But
that's the one I didn't find.
I put this in there mainly because of what happened yesterday. The United States is not wanting to go with a kinetic war against China these days. Trump has really taken a different approach, and he's trying to go for more an economic approach. And I think he's trying to have a alliance with Russia, and he's going to need to pull Russia away if he's going to want to go after China. Mm-hmm. So it's something to keep an eye on the way Trump really is going to take on China, because China is the major competitor to the U.S. Okay, next, Newsom sends Congress a $40 billion request for the LA wildfires, describes it as the most expensive natural disaster in U.S. history. So it doesn't mean he's going to get the $40 billion, and I don't think he should. No. But it's going to be a negotiation, and we know what Trump wants. Trump wants voter ID within the state of California.
Trump or Newsom?
Trump.
Oh, why? Oh, yes, sorry. He doesn't want it.
So California right now doesn't have voter ID. Anybody goes up to the poll, they don't have to show any form of ID whatsoever. This means they can go to multiple polling booths. This also means
anybody can vote.
Anybody can vote, whether you're a citizen or non-citizen. This is why California, and there's a couple other states like California that require no ID. It's very hard for the Republicans to shift the state
and leverage.
Yeah. Trump won a massive population of California. All the interior districts voted red this time, which
and
was
they are
conservative.
Mostly more considered usually more Republican. There are very Republican areas of California that for the longest time have been ignored. But it's funny that he's saying that it's the most expensive wildfire or natural disaster recovery when we know, and I even made a video about it in Spanish, that whose fault is it? Well, in large part his own. So now he wants money to recover from it, even though he won't accept that some of the things that happened, at least, were because of him. Like the fact that they were not prepared were because of him.
Well, we have to remember Newsom's currently under investigation as well. We brought up the story last week. Do you remember what it was for? He was supposed to build the high-speed rail system, and $9 billion has gone missing. And they're trying to get another $127 billion of federal funding. Is that going to disappear too? I mean, billions and billions of dollars are disappearing into California, much like what happened with Ukraine. It's this black hole where this money goes, and nobody knows what happened to it. So I don't want to see a lot of funding go into California. My heart goes out to the people that live there for the wildfires, and they are going to need funding, but I think it needs to have a lot of federal government oversight. You can't give it to Newsom and the people that are running that state. They're just too corrupt, and they've proven that over time. Okay, next we'll go into Pam Bondi has gone dark, refusing to release Epstein, JFK, and RFK files. She isn't necessarily refusing. There's a lot of requests being made to her about these files from different departments that are in charge of gathering the files, and she's not saying a word. And now Congresswoman Laura Boebert has called for the Attorney General Pam Bondi to release the Epstein files. This is one of the big things we wanted released. Kash Patel said it was going to be released. I'm thinking
first thing they all said.
Yeah.
Essentially.
Pam Bondi's the one holdout, and she's the Attorney General, so she has to sign off on it, even if Kash Patel and Tulsi Gabbard signs off. This is what I said the other day. You need multiple heads of departments to sign off on these classified documents. And we didn't look like we were going to have any holdouts. Now it looks like we're having Pam Bondi. Now, if she's being compromised or leveraged, a lot of people are suspecting she's being leveraged specifically from Mossad and the Israeli government. Why? Because Epstein was a Mossad asset. All the funding coming into Epstein was flowing through Israel, and a lot of the documents and videotapes that are expected to be in the Epstein file, Israel is expected to have those as well, and they were using it to leverage different people within governments around the world and within the U.S. government. So if she's been compromised in any way by an Israeli government or another government from around the world, she needs to step down or ask for some kind of immunity from Trump and release these documents, because the general public wants to see these documents released immediately.
Yeah, and it would be like a show of goodwill, basically, towards the public and the ones that elected them all.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, they're doing a lot, but she's gone black, so I still have hope that she'll come out and she'll do the right thing.
She's gone dark.
She's gone dark.
Yes.
There's a lot of pressure on her right now, and it is making headline news day after day, I see. So, okay, the next story was Dan Crenshaw threatens Tucker Carlson on a hot mic. Did you hear this, or did you watch the video?
No, I've been... speaking of, I've been editing. We have a hard out. We have like 1 minute, so let's run through this one.
Well, basically he said the reporter asked him if he had ever met Tucker Carlson, and he said, we've only talked on Twitter, but if I ever met him, I'd effing kill him.
End his life.
And Dan Crenshaw is ex-special forces, ex-military, so when he says something like this, you might want to believe it. He's also, he may be a conservative, but he's definitely a deep state asset. He's known as Eye Patch Crenshaw.
Because he's missing
Primetime 99 is the one that
Alex
Stein gave him that nickname. Everybody knows he's a compromised asset, and he's a traditional Republican in name only. So I guess we'll leave it there for today.
Well, I'll just quickly give the news. A Republican congressman from Texas was caught on a hot mic Monday, apparently threatening to end the life of former Fox News host Tucker Carlson in exchange with a British journalist. He called him the worst person and said they'd never met in person, but if he did, he would make sure he wasn't here with us anymore. Do you know why they don't like each other? Just quickly, because I have no
Because
backstory.
Dan Crenshaw's a deep state asset, that's why.
And Tucker's trying to go
for
them, or
well, he's a deep state asset, and he's been exposed time after time. Yet he remains in his position because he's a combat veteran and he's highly decorated. So people continue to vote for him that maybe don't know as much as people that follow geopolitics in depth. But he's made a lot of suspicious votes on the House floor that he shouldn't have made.
Okay.
Oh, I would like to say one more thing. I can't remember if we went over the story, but the Republicans passed their budget. I don't know if it has to go through a second round, but they weren't expected to be able to pass it, and it got passed late tonight. So it was breaking news. And if you remember, they were debating whether to do one big budget or two separate, smaller budgets. They thought two separate ones might be easier to get through. They ended up going with Trump's plan, which was one large budget. Trump made a bunch of phone calls late tonight and was able to get it passed.
Nice.
So, yeah.
Just quickly, we have a couple, not super chats, but just chats. I want to acknowledge people. Thank you for watching us. Jessica Ramirez says, greetings. I discovered you a few months ago, but I'd only seen the elaborate videos. Just this week, I've been watching the lives and I'm enjoying a lot, and I'm practicing my English. She wrote it in Spanish. So
thank you.
Thank you. And then Marlo of RT says, saludos or greetings. And then Marco Antonio Valencia says, Nat, you're very talented and intelligent. Thank you. I'm surprised that you get nervous when you make lives. I like your content. Greetings. Thank you so much. And I think it's just practice, talking in front, like knowing that there's like a live audience out there. I guess just the more we do it, the more, the better it'll get. Especially in Spanish. In English, it's easy because I have you to bounce off of. But in Spanish, I can just talk forever. And then Jankiel says, saludos cordiales a todo Canadá desde Venezuela, or greetings to all of Canada from Venezuela.
Oh, fantastic.
We're in Mexico, but Canada in spirit. But thank you so much.
And we like to say, like, everybody's not going to agree with everything we cover. We cover geopolitics. So when we cover subjects like Russia and Ukraine, we try to give an honest opinion of what's going on, not in the mainstream media, but behind the scenes. And a lot of people don't like when you say the U.S. and Russia may be trying to align, or when we go into Israel, Palestine, it's subjects like this, but we try to cover it as honest as possible and from a take that the mainstream media really isn't giving. Mm-hmm. So, and
sometimes even independent media, because they also have interests. And geopolitics again is more.
I watch a lot of I watch a lot of geopolitics, so I got a feel for things that happen usually a few months before the mainstream media is talking about them. Yeah. Oh, we're on the main camera again.
Yes, we are. I kept trying to tell you. But yes, so that will be it for tonight. Hopefully I'll be able to get out the Spanish video in the next hour and a half.
I doubt it.
If I don't,
hopefully by midnight.
It'll be out by tomorrow. But thank you so much for watching them and staying tuned. And we hope you have a lovely rest of your night. And
adios.
Bye.